Hey, welcome back to the BVB podcast. My name's Jacob, joined as always by Carver, but we got a special guest joining us today too to go over the not as exciting match over the weekend. But Ali from Dortmund Dispatch, man, thanks for joining us. How are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thank you for guys for having me. I've always been watching and listening, so it's kind of cool to be on this side.
I mean, we've been on your side too on Dortmund
Yeah.
Dispatch. We've had a couple of the other Dortmund Dispatch guys. Brian joins us pretty frequently, but
Mm-hmm.
excited to finally get you on too. And I mean, if anyone's unfamiliar with you or Dortmund Dispatch or like some of the other work you do you want to give a little plug?
Yeah, of course. So, me personally, I was writing for BVB Buzz for a little while, and through that, I met Eli and Brian and Pedro, who are all on the podcast online, and we kind of decided just to make podcast. And it's our second season, everything's going well. I stopped writing because I'm like, I have this much time, I'm either going to do the podcast or I'm going to write. So I'm like, I'll do the podcast. So I'm kind of doing that more often, and I'm on Twitter just complaining about Dortmund and Barca, to be honest. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Nice. Awesome. And everything's linked. If you want to follow Ali, Dortmund Dispatch, check out their podcast if you haven't already. Everything's linked in the description of this episode, as always. Carver, how are you doing, man? How's it going?
Doing well. We are all together here on Labor Day working, and I can't be. It's hard for me to be upset whenever we have brilliant weather out here. It's been blazing hot in St. Louis the past week, and now we're finally, hopefully, getting into the fall weather here. I don't want to speak too soon, but it's been nice out, so I'm doing well.
Yeah, I've been saying for the last 3 weeks to my wife that I'm like, it's fall. Like August hit, I'm like, it's fall. And now it's September, like it's really fall. It's still been hot, but I'm like, let's have soup tonight. Let's watch some Halloween movies. Bring it on. Like, I'm ready. I'm ready. And now
watch Harry Potter.
Yep, exactly. I got my Deathly Hallows tattooed on. Let's do it. I mean, it's September 1st, back to Hogwarts Day.
100%.
I won't go too hard on it. We can get back to Dortmund. I mean, if you guys want to get into this match, like I said, not as exciting. A bit of a reality check, and as far as like getting our hopes real high after the first win in match day 1, and now we get a 0-0, really exciting draw on the road at Bremen. I mean, we've seen way worse performances against Bremen, Carver, which we won't get into. But yeah, I mean, you guys want to start with the just kind of, I guess, initial thoughts going into this game and just initial takeaways from this game too, Ali?
So for me, my issue is, and even was last game, was the formation in terms of the player selection on so I don't mind. I'm just gonna go right in. I don't mind Chen and Pascal Gross, because that gives Sabitzer and Brandt like the freedom to play and like a free roaming to double 10 system. Cool. My issue is the width and how he wants to attack from the width. So that will also impact how the striker wants to move too. And having someone like Bayer, who isn't like an out and out striker, I think we kind of saw where we were lacking in certain things. I'll go into it later. But Carver, what do you think?
It's similar problems for the Frankfurt game. I mean, it's second clean sheet in a row, which is really nice. Haven't conceded a goal yet this season. But when it comes to the width, like you mentioned, I mean, Sabitzer, he's played in higher up the field, and that's arguably been his best position when it came to Dortmund last year too. But when you're looking at the wide players around him, like you mentioned, when you have Ryerson, that just doesn't really suit his strengths as in terms of just like a fullback. Mm-hmm. I mean, he is playing literally as a winger in this system. And I've mentioned before, I think Ryerson is really underrated when it comes to his attack. But this system specifically, I think he's just being asked too much. It's not him, which I think his strengths on the ball is just him driving up the field with the ball, dishing it off and finding a decent pass. But now he's like in the attacking third and trying to pick out these really tough passes or, try to go for like a 1v1 or even a 2v1 at times. And that's not really going to set him up to succeed. And it's not just him either. I mean, Schlotterbeck is playing out of position too. Sabitzer, I think he still has more to offer when it comes to being a bit more deeper or even just more central too. And he hasn't played it as like that number 7 in several years. So there's a handful of players in this system that's not really suited to their strengths. So some problems here in the early days when it comes to Şahin and his tactical adjustments, but thankfully, again, not conceding a lot of goals, and we haven't lost yet.
Yeah, we'll get into the lineup fully. I know we kind of mentioned some bits and pieces here and there. Kobel in goal. Whether it's the back three, back four, I'm just going to read it as a back four because you just see it or shifting quite a bit. But Schlotterbeck with Sula and Anton and Rierson. Then we have Gross and Chan, kind of two holding midfielders. Then Gittins with Brandt, Sabitzer, and as you mentioned, Bayer up top. We've been going in a bit on this. Like the formation looking a little more like 3 or 5 at the back. Obviously, that shifts depending on how play is shifting, whether we're attack and defense. So, Ali, I don't know if you want to get into that a little bit more. Like, I think the biggest danger in what we see in this match too, and what we've been talking about is like playing 3 center backs, whether it's Schlotterbeck as a left back or not. Like, I think we can agree that that's maybe not his best position. He does like to run up and he can make runs here and there, and we've seen some pretty good things from him. But I think when we see this system, it seems like we're not quite getting the best, especially when you look at the comparison of like what we were able to do with Matson last year. And then you obviously run the risk of like, these are our 3 center backs. And then what happens when we get in trouble? We get these yellow cards. We get the red card later, which I think everyone was kind of expecting. And I mean, in that moment, I know this is later on in the match, but with this being a 0-0 draw, we're probably going to be bopping around quite a bit with this match. In that moment when that happened, like I'm more upset that we don't have more center backs and we're playing all 3 of them than I was really like getting the red card. Cause I think you can look at that and think like, why would you even make that tackle? Like you have Kobel back there. You have other guys in space too, who might be able to cross over. But I also look at that as like, I mean, you stopped the goal from happening and we were still able to hang on and secure the clean sheet. Not a great way to look at it because maybe we don't want to go down a man, but I mean, he could have easily broken away and scored in there. But I mean, as far as like center backs, how we're playing with this kind of back 3, back 5, what are your if you want to go in on that a little bit, Ali?
Like in terms of the red card, the forward was going away from the goal. Like he was going across the box. Plus, he had a center back in front of him. Plus, you have Kobel. It was a rash decision. It's obviously not indicative of his quality, but like he didn't need to go to ground essentially. But in terms of the back line, I think my biggest concern is what you touched on in terms of these are our center backs. Like this is all we have. If someone gets a red card, gets an injury, then are we going to move Chan into the back line? Is Ben Sebaini, pardon me, going to slide in? Would Ben Sebaini be better as the like left wing back option? Which maybe if we kept Tom Rotha, it would have been a better choice, right? Rather than playing our like Adeyemi, like Mullen as that left back role.
Gittins has that left back role too this game.
Yeah. I'll remind me later. But yeah, in terms of the defense, like I think he wants that back 5 in terms of like the 3 center backs and 2 defensive mids to be there, and he wants like the wing backs and the double tens and the strikers to be like our main force. And I get that, but the issue is you're like it's not like it's just I said earlier, it's way too many ideas at once, and it's just a bit worrisome with injuries and red cards. It's also early in the season, so we don't know what's going to happen. But it's good to see him experimenting now, at least, not later.
Right, but when you see Bayer come in, which Jake, I think, you and I were anticipating on seeing that come in, you see some of his shortcomings as a lone striker pretty quick. And Sahin has tried with Adeyemi, now he's trying with Bayer. We really need someone like Urasi to be fit in order for that attacking front line to click a bit more. Like I mentioned before, Sabitzer has Rierson to his right to play when it comes to the wide players, or you have Bayer, who had 17 touches this game. I would argue probably half of those touches whenever he gets pushed off the ball way too easily. So you have no one that can hold up play. And, this team is still going to have bits and pieces of Terzic in them when it comes to just how they're progressing up the field. And, a lot of times when you have these great line-breaking passes from the likes of Schlotterbeck, he's very capable of those. Sula has also done that a handful of times in preseason and even in the Pokal game. But when that ball gets to our striker now, it's Bayer instead of Fulkrug, and he just cannot hold up the ball. He doesn't have the strength for it. He's skinnier than I am, and that's saying a lot. So you need someone who is actually capable of just holding up that ball and Outside of that, too, we mentioned already some problems with the width. Collectively, we're taking way too long to just find any sort of rhythm with the ball, too. I mean, the first game and this game, both, you've had 60 to 65 minutes before the team really starts to wake up. And this time, it took also going a man down, too. I mean, defensively, even, it was the same way, too. We were pretty sleepy, way too many individual errors, too. So that also disrupted the very little momentum we had going forward to begin with. So there's lots of little intricacies here that Shaheen needs to be taking a look at if he's wanting to continue with this system. Because if it's going to be, central to Girassi being that number 9 in order for our front three to click, we're going to need to make some adjustments, I think, in terms of how this system's going to work before he's healthy, because I don't think you can continue going on like this, especially now with Schlotterbeck being sent off with the red. He's going to be forced to really change the system, and because you can't have 3 center backs anymore unless you're going to be more, I guess, primarily running with a 4-2-3-1 or 4-2-4 and then have more Benzabaini. Or, I mean, also Kuto's going to help a lot too whenever he's going to be coming back from his knock. But at the moment, the personnel just doesn't look like it's there, and the personnel that's available, it's just, again, not suiting to their strengths.
Yeah, and on like, I'm looking at Sabitzer and Brandt right now too, like just how this system is looking. It's looking like we're not getting the best out of both of them either. Adam last week talked a lot about Sabitzer and not seeing really what we want from him. Like even in this match, I think he had touches wise 32. I think Brandt had something right around there too. And as our like attacking mids, the guys who I want creating and driving that a lot. Like I know we have Pascal Gross who's kind of starting the play a little deeper, and he's getting plenty of touches in this match with, I think it was about 109, but that's a big drop off from 109 Pascal Gross to Sabitzer at like 30. Like it's just, for our creators, I want to see them involved a lot more, and that seems really concerning that they're not. Like in this match too, where they pull up the like kind of our attacking play and how we're working it up the pitch, the little graphic that they put up, I think at halftime. It was a lot down the central left side, like a lot more down the middle is what we're trying to do. But if we're going down the middle and our cams aren't getting the ball at all, like what's going on? Like that seems so concerning to me too.
The biggest problem I had was last day of the transfer window, surprise exit for Sebastian Haller. I feel like someone like him in this system would really help, because it's like we said, Bayer is not that hold up striker. He's someone you want where a Sabitzer and Brandt is playing right now. You know what I mean? So that he's not exactly being asked to be the hold up play, the last touch on the ball. And you could see it in there was a couple plays, I can't remember them exactly, but there was crosses to the back post, and whoever was at the back post would just hit it across the box. And Bayer was like not even close to it. Like he was late to read it. But if you had someone like a Girassi or Haller, they'd be able to know generally, like, I should be here, it's gonna come back, whatever. And then in terms of the width, like, man, I like JBG, he's not playing in the way that we want him to play. I don't think that's the position for him in this system. If you're gonna play the system, he should be in the front three. Having that freedom to go where he wants, to take on people and to create. But to have him out wide, his role should be to spread the back line, or not spread, pardon me, to stretch the back line alongside, right, the opposite wing back. So if they're stretching, right, and then you have your 2 10s, in the pockets of space in behind the striker, that's great, right? You know what I mean? I think we saw this with who did it? Antonio Conte, right, with Chelsea, right, where he'd have his wing backs push high and wide, and then you have Hazard and Willian, right, in the pockets. And if that's how he wants to play, that's great. But you need that like structure, you need that discipline and personnel. There's a reason he likes Victor Moses so much, right? Because he just does what he's supposed to do. So I don't mind the experimenting. I like the idea, but the issue is, it's like Carver said earlier. It's kind of like the tempo needs to go up. Definitely needs to go up. It's way too slow. We're losing way too many passes, and our striker He's not a striker right now.
Yeah, Gittins just simply doesn't have. I mean, it's just not in his player profile to be the one
Hmm.
that tracks back and gets back
Hmm.
whenever we lose possession. He is someone that's going to be the opposite, where if we're winning possession, he can be quick on the counter, things like that. And again, that if you're looking for a wingback that's going to do both things, Adeyemi should thrive in that role. And he came on this game and did just that. He brought a lot of life into this team. Surprisingly, had some really good touches in tight spaces, which Adeyemi is usually not that great at. I mean, it's not like he can't dribble, but a lot of times it's his decision making. He doesn't keep his head up, or he just has a poor touch in a tight area. But a few different times, his ball retention was really solid. He had space to exploit, and his decision making was pretty solid for the most part too. So if we're looking at that wingback role, Adeyemi should be that person until we can get the likes of Kuto back and maybe slide Rierson out to the left. There's a few different ways you can go about it, but yeah, Gittins I don't think is the answer for that play either. I mean, Mullen we saw last game, he wasn't the answer for that, and it's just, I think it's going to be the same exact result with Gittins, and I'm surprised that we try to do that.
Yeah, this game felt like it needed around the 60th minute mark when we're kind of dragging. We're not being able to. We can't get anything through. Like I just felt like I wish they would sub on Gittins and like we did last week and make something happen. But he was already on the pitch, and
Yeah.
I mean, as you said, like playing this position is just completely different. And from what he's done before, what his probably like where his strengths lie the most. And the thing with that last match, it wasn't that he came in and played this role in a wingback role in a fantastic way. It was very much on that counter, like you mentioned, Carver. Like, and because he was fresh, he was able to run and just, I mean, once he's off and running, and that's where you see him like attacking in this final third, being able to cut guys up and have this quick shot and amazing goal that we saw last week. The problem was now he's just been running for 65 minutes and hasn't been able to do much. And yeah, we did see some life from Adeyemi, which is good. And maybe if we keep running this system, is it going to be like this every time where it's like, all right, whoever the sub comes on, like maybe we see a little more life. And I do like the Adeyemi shout in that position if this is what we want to keep rolling, because we've seen that more from him last year in the Champions League. That's where we saw some really good performances, where he was kind of playing this role where he is so fast he can get up and down. He can get back when we need him to. But yeah, right now it's just like what are we doing? And the only like positive thing I take away is, or like I want things to be clicking a little better. I think even in the Frankfurt match, I was like, awesome. Like everything wasn't great. There's still room to improve and grow. And I think that's what I kind of have to remember. Like this is just match day 2, right? Like it's a team we need to be beating. But for it to be match day 2 and we still get the clean sheet and we walk out of there with a point, like I'm not terribly upset. Like it's still a decent result, I guess, because like there has been so much change and so much turnover in this team. Most of the guys we've signed in the window like are now in the 11. Obviously there's some injuries here and there, but like it's such a new team, it's a new coach. And I want to be like optimistic in that light and just kind of remember like, okay, it might take a little more time. Like not everything is going to click right away.
If you don't mind me jumping in,
Yep.
what would your starting 11s be? Because I feel like he's kind of just picking like the best players rather than like the best balance. You know what I mean? He's going for like a game changers rather than the actual like a balance. You know, would you change the formation? Would you change the personnel only, but keep the structure?
My two answers for that is one, if we're talking like in this next game in the timeline with Schlotterbeck's being sent off, I'm going to have to change the formation. I'll have the two center backs of Anton and Sula. Ben Zabaini maybe gets a start and the back four there. Going forward, though, if again this is a system that Shaheen wants to continue trying to do, if we're looking for a wingback role, I have Adeyemi slotting as my starter. And then also, we haven't seen yet after a brilliant preseason is Julian Duranville. I mean, he has been ripping up preseason, even in the Pokal too. Did exactly what, we're hoping to see him do when he gets on this field. And he could be also someone that could thrive in that wingback role too. I mean, not as much as going to offer as someone as Adeyemi, but different player profile when it comes to on the ball too. He's got the tenacity in him. I think he absolutely deserves a bit more minutes here. Again, I know it's only match day 2, but when it comes to just, someone like JG who's not going to be fitting in that role, and if you need someone else later in the game that can do that, Duranville absolutely deserves a start there, or a shout there at the very least. And Mullen came on here too, and he worked really hard on and off the ball too for this game against Bremen. So, well done for him and just the short amount of time he had there on the field. But going forward, those would be my two options for out wide. And then there wouldn't be too much I'd change outside of that, again, until Akuto comes back. And if we're looking for more game changes on the right-hand side too, that'd be someone I'm looking at in the near the future. In the center, I'd probably still say the same, having Chan as a number 6, or even having like a dual 8 and Sabitzer and Gross. But I guess it just depends what Shaheen's wanting to do.
Yeah, for me, I would change up the formation. Like I'd put center back. Like I feel like I want to give some praise to Sula, who has been doing a pretty solid job, I feel, in these first 2 matches where a lot of people wanted him gone in the window, and then we see him come back being super fit and super motivated, and I love to see it, and I feel like he's put on a couple of really good performances. So as far as 2 center backs, I don't know if it's Anton or Sula, but I think Schlotterbeck's in there as one of the 2 center backs.
Oh, yeah.
One of those 2 guys. I say Rierson, left back, Jan Couto, right back. And then a midfield 3 of Gross, Sabitzer, Brandt, a little more attacking. And then up top for health right now, like I'd say Bayer, and then Gittins and one of Adeyemi or Malen, and then probably see Duranville come on as a sub later. But that's like my 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, like that kind of formation is what I would deem best.
So you're dropping our captain.
Yeah. Yep.
I kind of would too, Ollie, to be honest with you. So I've been having to go at Chan as well.
I mean, like I said, I'm not the biggest Chan fan. I just as far as like
our episodes, all we do is rip into him.
I mean, this was we joined you on the season review episode, and that's what it was. Yeah. I think I even off the cuff threw Chan under the bus, and that wasn't even the question. And I just but yeah, dropping him, and I feel like we've seen Sabitzer in this kind of deeper position and double pivot. And I think him and Gross could be good. I think you lose a little defensively, but I don't know. That's what I would prefer to see. And I like that you mentioned, is he just picking kind of the best players and throwing them out there? And I think that's what needs to be decided. Again, we're only here guessing, right? We don't know what's really going on behind the scenes. But if I were to guess, and as you mentioned, is he picking the best players? That's kind of what it looks like with the 3 center backs, right? Because then if you have to make the decision with the center backs being Schlotterbeck, Sula, or Anton, who do you drop, I guess, essentially? And I get that's a tough decision. But it's good to have competition. It's okay if you need to rotate here and there, especially when we get in the Champions League, like we're about to talk about. We're going to need to rotate guys. We can't run this back 3 2 times a week. It's impossible. I said it so many times last year, we can't keep playing Hummels 2 games or 3 games a week, basically. And then he proved me wrong week after week, and I loved it. I love being able to keep Hummels healthy. I don't know how we did it. I don't know how he did it, but it worked. But it's not a viable option. I've been saying it since the summer. And I understand it's hard to drop, but it's good to have competition. It's good to have these guys pushing and fighting for that spot. And I think you kind of see the same thing as you move up the field too. Is it Adeyemi, Gittins, or Malen? It's fine to have competition. And if it's a decision, do I pick just the best guys, or do I pick formation? I say you get your formation figured out, and then you just got to make the tough decisions. And yeah, I don't know. It's all hard to say, and we're all speculating, and that's why we do these podcasts, right? We're way too in deep, and we just have to have these conversations. We're way too invested emotionally, and that's why we're here.
No doubt.
But yeah, what about you, Ali?
I think he's running with this formation so he can have Sabitzer and Brandt solely focus. I say solely, obviously, right? They have defensive duties, but they can prioritize their offensive contributions with having cover defensively. But at the moment, they aren't necessarily the problem. It's what's happening around them, right? Because we talked about Bayer not really being a 9, and then we let go of a 9 because we're expecting Garassi to come back fully fit, hopefully, right? Fingers crossed, no injuries, all that. But we don't exactly have the best wing back options I mentioned Conte earlier. Like he had a formula. He's like, my wingbacks needs to be, A, B, C, D, right? They need to be a certain way, and I think Shine's still figuring that out because he's using traditional wingers as his wingbacks, and he's kind of like sliding over the defense to cover for their, I guess, ventures, right? Because I at one point I saw a JBG on the right wing, and I'm like, yo, you're a left wing back. What are you doing on this side? But I would personally, I'd play with this team right now. I'd play a diamond midfield. So I'd put Chan, um, uh, Pascal Gross, and Sabitzer in front of him, and then Brandt, and then you can have your pick with Bayer and like Adeyemi. I think that's probably like the best we have right now, because that gives those two guys the freedom to like go wide, right, and counter, right, and they'll have the space, they got the speed, they got the tech, and then in terms of defense, I liked what was said earlier. But it made me laugh because we have Ben Sebaini as a left back, but we're not really willing to pick him. But Rierson on the left, Akoto ideally on the right, and then Schlotterbeck. And I personally, right now, for comfort's sake, I'd pick Zula, but it's a good problem to have in terms of competition.
I do want to touch on the pressing from our side too. I mean, in terms of just defending in an opposition zone half. I mean, I think Sabitzer also, reason that he's in that front three is just he's willing to do a lot of that dirty work and just the pressing. Bayer, you saw a lot of too. Bayer is fast as hell. I really got to see him. I mean, of course, not having any space to exploit when it came to being in possession, but just simply those like 10 and 15-yard sprints to press against an opposition. Bayer and Sabitzer did a pretty good job individually, but collectively, pressing still seems to be a pretty big issue too. And under Terzic, it was pretty woeful as well. It is disappointing given like Dortmund, that's a massive part of our identity. Pressing used to be like our game, not exclusively, but I mean, we were like, one of the masters at it when it came to world football. And now you're seeing opposition do the pretty much the exact same thing back to us. I mean, granted, it's a different look in how teams are pressing against us, but Frankfurt, really well organized, disciplined, won the ball numerous times high up the field. Bremen, now again, against Bremen, we had a lot of individual errors, some sloppy mistakes on the ball, but Bremen recognized those same opportune moments. And you're now realizing like oppositions know already in just these two games, they're recognizing moments of when they can go and press against us and get rewarded for it. I mean, it was like your basic man-to-man marking for Bremen, but again, they're putting us into certain situations, into these traps that they know that we can't get out of. And you saw that a handful of times already. So, on both sides of the ball, I'm hoping pressing is adjusted and addressed as well for Shaheen too, and not just like the personnel and how we progress up the field, but just too, I'd like to see better ways in how we can deal with the press and also just press oppositions too.
I was going to bring it back to center backs and depth and young players and everything, because there was a quote from Kel, and I just like seeing this quote. Like, you brought up Tom Rota earlier, and it seems like, oh, we're playing a wing back and we got rid of this young great wing back, and we don't want to play Benzabaini, and like who knows the thoughts on everything. Like, so this quote from Kel was very interesting to me, especially given the center back situation, and even if you want to say our depth at left back situation. So the quote is, we have enough young players behind that we want to develop. Part of the plan was to slim down the squad and fill it with young, hungry players. They should get playing time. That's why we made a conscious decision in favor of this measure. Part of that, I'm like, cool. And then part of that, I'm like, we have young guys, and you sent the one who probably should be getting the most minutes at Tom Rota, my personal thought. You sent him out, but he seems to fit this exact quote. So why is he gone? And then I look at, because on this center back thing, when we're playing our three center backs, and we have to bring up, I think he's 19 Mane from BVB2. He is the center back depth that we brought. Like, he's the cover we brought. I know we didn't see him like when we didn't see him sub on, but he made the bench. Like, that means you're gonna rely on him if you absolutely need to. I know they changed things up and they ended up bringing on Benzabaini, and I know Chan can play center back, but it just seems so interesting that there's an option. I'm not saying Tom Rota is center back. Like, this is kind of he's a little separate from this center back argument. But I'm just going back to, I guess, the summer transfer window, and why do you let someone like Koulibaly go? Why do you not try to bring in another center back if we're planning to play all three? I don't know. It's just weird. It's weird. I don't know if you guys have
In the
thoughts on it.
preseason, yeah, I mean, in the preseason, he was using Tom Rota as a center back, right, as the left side of the three. And when he did get forward, right, if he pushed up as like as a wing back, you did see him get more involved, right? Swing. He has a great cross. So I don't understand. Like I guess we already got like a preview that he wanted to use wingers as the wing backs rather than fullbacks as in that role, especially like on the left side, which like doesn't make sense to me because I personally I'd rather have that what's the word, that comfort, right, that defensively we'll be okay and we have enough quality, especially in the front three, which we do, to create and to finish chances. But it's an interesting quote. Like we have a lot of youngsters, and I'm happy that they're relying on them. I'm also a Barca fan, so I know a thing or two about youngsters. Boy, that sounds crazy. I know, I know a thing or two about starting these young players who obviously have potential and talent, but the risk that you're running is injuries too, right? Because they're not fully developed, right? We just saw Mark Burnell tear his ACL off of like a nothing challenge. So it's great, but it's also an excuse to cover up for their lack of spending in the summer in terms of actually buying depth rather than names.
Yeah, and Shaheen, excuse me, needs to do a better job of being a bit more proactive and just overall better decision making when it comes to his substitutions too. I mean, you had the entire back line booked within 53 minutes of this game, and we saw Benzema come in the 57th, and you saw Adeyemi come in this 57th a few minutes after, but I think we should have seen subs quicker than that. I mean, we had a handful of yellow cards, I think at least 3 or 4 before the half time whistle even came. Schlotterbeck got sent off not far after that, and I think that's a result of Shaheen not being a bit more. He should have been just again more proactive. He wasn't cautious enough in recognizing that this team was not disciplined this day. I mean, we had 5 yellow cards total, if I'm not wrong, and then he had a red card on top of that for Schlotterbeck. There should have been more changes in this back line to make sure that we are not put in that position to begin with. Now, granted, we started defending a lot better. Like I mentioned, we did wake up and we were a lot more organized when we were a man down, but it shouldn't come to that circumstance in order for us to wake up. We should be more proactive and ready to be a bit more attack minded and just organized to begin with before we go down to 10 men.
So then, if you guys don't mind me segueing in after the international break, what do you guys want to see, right? Because we will have a Champions League game. I think it's on the 18th, right? What do you want to see? Like a change of formation, a change of personnel, right? Because we talked about balance versus the best players. I'll let you guys take it from here.
Yeah, we do have some time off, international break, as you mentioned, coming up. So I think the next Dortmund match is in like 11 days against Heidenheim. Come back against Heidenheim on Friday. It's good that we have a Friday match coming out of the break because then we have a little more time going to the Champions League. So that's looking a little promising. I'm just looking at FOTMob right now, and hopefully if there's no other setbacks with Guirassy, like I think he is an option. Like they say, he's just a few days away. So I think this is a good. I hate having 2 matches, 3 if you want to include the Pokal, and then immediately it always feels like right when you get back to the football, it's like international break, and I'm like, dang it, I just wanted to keep going. But this is probably a pretty good time for a little break and a little extra time to figure things out. Like I think the good thing about this Werder Bremen match is cool. We hopefully have a lot of learnings from this match, and we can tweak things how we need to, especially knowing Schlotterbeck's out with his red, right? So you obviously have to change things up. I think we see the normal kind of standard back 4. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Benzabaini starting that left back position. That's not, I think, what I'd necessarily want to see, but I think given the Champions League match coming up shortly after that, like here, like we already seem pretty tight. and we already got to rotate quite a bit. And I don't even know like what's going to happen. But obviously, I think Schlotterbeck's out this one. We're going to see him start in that Champions League match. My thought is probably kind of the lineup I gave earlier, with more of the four at the back. And I think that's going to be Benzabaini in this upcoming match against Heidenheim. And then kind of the rest of the 11 that I mentioned. I doubt we see Girassi start. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Bayer again, or even let Nadiemi go up top. And then we see, hopefully, Girassi come on maybe 20, 15 minutes. And then maybe we see him actually start in the Champions League match. I know that's a pretty quick turnaround. This is all being hopeful that like he's just good to go in these next 11 days. But I mean, that's kind of my thought. Carver?
They don't have too much different from you, Jake. Hopefully Girassi gets warmed up here in these next few weeks. I think this international break is going to be huge for that. Not too much to add. I did have something else, but it escaped me. Ali, do you have anything? Maybe it'll come back to me in the meantime.
No, honestly, I'm hoping a bit more intensity from the team overall.
Yeah.
And a bit more like I want our tempo and our rhythm to start early, rather than, like you mentioned earlier, it took us like 60, 70 minutes just for us to actually get into the game. That's way too long. Like in that time, you'll lose 3 games before you even, try to actually go for it. But hopefully Girassi is back, because this team's begging for like an out and out 9. Still don't understand the Haller release. It doesn't make sense to me, because I feel like he would thrive in this system. But just want more intensity overall,
especially against these higher quality oppositions in the next few weeks. I mean, of course, you had Frankfurt right out the gate, but Bremen is a team that is beatable. And now you have Heidenheim, who's at the top of the table right now, only 2 games in, but they have been flying, 2 wins in 2 games, and then right into the Champions League with Brugge. And you really want to start to hit the ground running in the Champions League here. I mean, you have them, and then Celtic, but after that, you have the likes of Madrid after that. So you really need to get these first few results under your feet, especially just in the new format and everything, and make sure you're setting yourself up in a good position. And then after that Champions League game, you're away at Stuttgart too. So, some really big fixtures coming up, 3 in a row really in these next like 2 or 3 weeks. So it's going to be crucial for Şahin to get these things right during this break here and build some momentum, build some rhythm. Like you mentioned, that's crucial for me too. Yeah, I'm tired of us taking an hour plus to get into the game. It's only been 2 games now, but at the same time, I am expecting to see a bit, better here, and because Şahin has had a full preseason. Doesn't need to be perfect by any means, but we do need to start clicking on some of these simple and just small things here and there. Get those right.
I don't love that. I feel like this happens every year when we start getting in the multiple games a week with Champions League. We're always like, ooh, and then we got a tough one here, and then we got a tough one here, and then we got another tough one here. And it's because I think part of it is like we know we don't have the depth. Like we know we can't really put out strong 11s back to back to back. And I'm just like, oh, like it sounds like a gauntlet, but it's just week after week, and it is tough. And it's just, I think it's frustrating as a fan, because it's like I don't feel confident in our ability to rotate, which we need to do, because we're this is every year, right? We're always competing in the Champions League. Like thankfully we made it in this time around, finished in 5th still, but like this is our expectations are to compete in the Bundesliga, in the Pokal, in the Champions League. And it just seems so frustrating that it's always just feels like such a gauntlet, because I don't know how we're going to rotate the squad. But I mean, let's get in the Champions League a little bit more. Specifics, like I know you threw down some of those matches, but yeah, the new format this year, I'm not going to try to explain everything. It's a little different. We're not in the groups. I remember watching, I had the draw, quote unquote draw, because it was like, I didn't understand what was going on. The automatic, like they drew they drew the pot 1 teams, and then it was just like, here's all the, and then Cristiano Ronaldo pushes a button, and then here's all the teams you're playing, and I'm like, what the F is going on right now? But
seriously,
I might get some of this wrong. I'll try to give a brief explanation. We have our first 8 matches roughly. It's kind of it's not round robin. It's basically like league play, and then I think whoever after this first phase, I guess is what it's called. Top 8 teams in the table advance automatically the next round. And then I believe the other positions after that, it's like a knockout.
Yeah,
to get
the
in the
round
next
of
round.
16 is going to be automatically qualified in March. First series, like you mentioned, 9th through 16th are going to play in a knockout phase in February to earn their place in the other side of the round of 16. And then, of course, after that, 17th through the last round of the last place in the league are automatically eliminated. So it's a full league of 36 teams. And if you look at that table and you think to yourself, like, hey, isn't this basically what they were thinking about for the Super League? The answer is yes. Obviously, UEFA wanted a Super League. This is just a Super League that they can control and not someone else. So it's pretty much like essentially a ripoff for that. And there's
Thank you
like
for
those
saying that.
automatic teams, like you mentioned already, quote unquote. That's exactly what they're doing. They're building a team that are automatically in those spots, and the biggest and the best clubs are going to be in those slots pretty much no matter what. But Dortmund can maybe be in that window between eighth and those teams that are going into the knockout phases in February. But just so anyone didn't know already how we're going to be able to advance, you got to be either in that 1st through 8th spot for automatic qualification or 9th through 16th for the playoffs in February.
Yeah, man. Seems like the Super League wasn't a bad idea.
Yeah.
But I think like it's unnecessary. They just wanted it's like you said, right? They just wanted to control the money and things like that. But in terms of our games, like I'm looking at it now, Club Brugge away, I feel like we'll be fine. Celtic, it's going to be intense. Real. Oh, another thing, UEFA love a storyline. Love a storyline. You know what I mean? Like there's so many storylines that they've given us. Only in these first 8 games, but I feel like we kind of lucked out because it could have been a lot worse because we have Bologna, we have Shakhtar, Dinamo Zagreb is going to be intense. But yeah, like honestly, it's just the Spanish teams that are. I'm not going to talk about Barca Dortmund because like my heart's going to tear apart. But all in all, I think we lucked out.
Yeah, I think it is a decent draw, if you will. I think the most confusing thing about these phases or how these matches line up, like it's hard to know how we compare to other teams. Like you can see their matchups and kind of be like, oh, that seems difficult, but how does that fall in their schedule in their domestic leagues, right? And it's kind of weird to at this phase, like before everything starts, to be like, all right, they have a tough draw, they have a tough draw, they have a tough draw. Like it's going to take a few matches to see where people are starting to fall in the table to really know like the feel of it, I guess. Like that's the only thing, like it seems so mysterious to me, and I don't like that because I don't know, I don't like it. So we'll see as we're going. It does seem like a pretty favorable draw for us right now, but yeah, we'll see. I don't know, it's confusing.
Very confusing. Very, very confusing. I didn't even know the rules. Like up until you explained it, I was like, I'm just gonna watch the games and hope for the best.
Honestly, that's probably the best way. Just be like, yeah, honestly, all right, cool. It's looking pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. But sorry, kind of off topic. PSG. Oh my god, have you seen their like lineup of games? It's insane.
I have, but I forget what it looked like. I was looking at mine. Let me go ahead and
PSG Champions
League. It's like Man City, Arsenal, maybe Real Madrid.
Yeah,
like
it's insane. Yeah. It's actually insane. I'll pull it up. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, compared to the last few years, this is on paper, a very favorable draw. I mean, it's like we mentioned already. We have Barcelona and Madrid. Barcelona's at home. Madrid is away. Obviously going to be extremely difficult matches, but the rest of them are absolutely achievable. I mean, we have Celtic at home, and I don't want to get too overconfident just because Rangers really gave it to us and both fixtures really a few years back here under Rosa. But so Celtic will be a very similar energy to that game too. But again, very achievable, everything else. And I don't think there should be any reason why we shouldn't be advancing, especially as personnel starts to get more and more integrated in this team over the next month. I mean, you have Kuto coming back hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Same with Girassi. Those two are going to be vital in how this system is going to flow under Shaheen. And that's just to name a few. I mean, we have a few more coming back as well.
All right, I'm so sorry, but I got the list. You ready?
Go for it.
Yeah.
This is for PSG. I know we're talking about Dortmund, but this is hilarious. First, they play Girona. Then they play Arsenal, PSV, Atletico Madrid, Bayern, Salzburg, whatever, Man City, and then Stuttgart.
Good Lord.
Sorry, they're going to be ruined.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, man.
That's crazy.
It's wild.
Wow. And no Mbappe to rescue him anymore either.
Man, don't even get me started on that guy. The hype job.
The only thing PSG has going for him is, I mean, well, they play in Liga, so this is really the only thing they kind of focus on, anyways, and they just win Liga, anyways. Like, it's whatever.
Yeah,
it will
but
be
the
fun to
thing
watch
is,
their downfall, though.
yeah, but like it's like that saying, steel sharpens steel. If no one's really challenging you in your league, then it's very difficult for you to do well against much better oppositions. Like the only reason they got to that final a couple years ago, yeah, it was because of Neymar, right? He carried that team, right? But yeah, they're screwed. In our case, though, in Dortmund's case, I think we'll be fine. I think we'll even get like a top 8 position. I'm fairly confident with that, especially if Girassi gets back and, like you guys said, everybody's fits into the system. I don't see a reason for us to lose. This is gonna bite me in the ass. I don't see a reason for us to lose certain games, but I think we'll be fine.
I was also just thinking, all this trash talk on PSG, we're probably gonna get them in that like little knockout round.
We'll be fine.
A repeat. We got Zula.
Yeah, I'm confident it'll be fine, especially no Mbappe. Like, we're good, we're chilling.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you guys have anything else? Champions League or Bundesliga? How are you gonna spend your weekend off?
Crying over City. Oh, should we mention real quick, for those of you who don't know, Marco Reus obviously plays for LA Galaxy. He was in St. Louis yesterday. Him and Berkey got to meet up. It was the perfect scenario for us St. Louis fans because Reus did not score. He was very quiet for us. St. Louis, we wanted to win, but we still got to see him play an hour on the field, which is great. And Jake, I don't know if you got to talk on your experience being very close to them too.
It was weird. I think there was a time like pre-match when Reus walked past me, like, and I felt like I almost blacked out. I was like, holy shit. Like, yeah, that was pretty wild. Like, I've seen a lot of cool soccer players. I've been like around quite a few, but that one was nuts. That was weird. And he didn't even like look at me. He just like passed me, and I was like, oh, I felt like I blacked out. It was weird.
You just breathe the same air, and you're like, oh my god. I do the same.
Watching the match, I was so like, it was so weird. I was very much though like St. Louis. Like I love Marco Reus. I got my Marco Reus hat right here. Yeah. Like, I love him, right? But I did not want to see him come to MLS if it wasn't in St. Louis. So I very much didn't want him to score. I didn't want him to do anything. And then there's the moment, right, where they get the free kick outside the 18, right around where he scored against Darmstadt. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the moment everybody's been wanting. It's Reus on a free kick, Berkey in goal. Luckily for St. Louis fans, pretty easy for Berkey to handle. But I was so stressed. I did post this video on our socials if you haven't seen it. I was up in the press box and just like my hands are literally like on my face because I'm like so stressed.
It's such a weird feeling. I was in the stands too, and I was like, this is the only time in my life where Reus has been on a free kick and I'm like actively rooting against him. And I hated that feeling. But I also didn't want to root against Berkey either in my club. So I was just kind of like sitting there like, I don't want to watch any of this really.
Yeah.
That video was hilarious. I saw it earlier. I was scrolling on Twitter and it popped up. I was like, why is he celebrating this? And I'm like, wait, he's on the other side.
Yeah, it was weird. And I do like apologize to obviously this is a Dortmund podcast, right? Well, I mean, I apologize to most of our listeners who probably don't give a crap about St. Louis and are just Dortmund fans and maybe tuned into that match, maybe their first MLS match yesterday just to see Reus.
Yeah.
But I mean, you just got to understand, like, St. Louis is our hometown club and it's very new and we're all very hyped. I'm also a little biased because I work at the club. But
which is fire,
it was such a weird, conflicting thing. It was awesome to see Reus. Awesome to see the moment of them like face each other for I think the first time being on opposition teams. But yeah, it was a really cool and weird day. That's it. And there's a lot of like Dortmund fans sending some heat on the St. Louis City SC Twitter. And it's just funny being on literally both sides of it. Like, I'm just like chilling over here.
Oh, man. Is it possible to have both crests right next to each other on my shirt?
Ollie, did you watch the match? It's okay if you didn't.
No, I was following on Twitter just in case he scored. I had a pretty busy weekend, so I was, no one would know on this side, but I'm a photographer, videographer, so I was pretty active, but I was hoping, right, for something on a goal side. But no, I the only time I've ever watched MLS was for Messi, but now I have another reason to watch it. So yeah, no, I'm up. I was telling Carver earlier, it's so weird seeing him wear the number 18.
It is weird. Yeah.
So weird. If I got an LA jersey, it would have to be 11. I can't do 18. It's weird.
Yeah, I would change it too.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, it is weird, and that's why I was so upset. That's why I didn't want to see him anywhere else. Like, if he came to St. Louis, cool, I can accept that.
Yeah.
Anywhere else, I'm like, nah, I can't.
I heard he wanted
cheer for
Miami
you.
too.
Yeah,
Lame.
somewhere with a beach.
Could have been in St. Louis. Could have been chilling.
Could have been. Man.
Yeah, so, well, thanks for letting us talk St. Louis and Royce a little bit. No.
Hey, man.
We appreciate everyone hanging out and listening. Ollie, what do you guys have coming up this week on Dortmund Dispatch? Like, you guys got an episode on the way?
Yeah, it should release on Wednesday the 4th. We're also on YouTube now. We took some inspiration from you guys. We're on video. We post weekly. Every week. We're on all platforms, right? Audio, and now YouTube. They're gonna give their thoughts. I'm editing it, so should be up Wednesday morning. So check that out.
No, appreciate guys hanging out as always. I guess we'll be back. Not next week. Not next week. We'll probably have a little weekend off too, and we'll be back after the Heidenheim game. I don't know, man. I don't know how to do this anymore. We come back. I think I'm cruising, and then they throw a little wrench in an international break, and I'm confused everywhere. So we'll be back sometime soon. We appreciate you guys hanging out. We'll see you later.